So the qualifications were here in Delhi. So there was one round in on the Gurgaon side, one round in Chandigarh, and the finals were in Vijayawada. The area to drive is the size of a football field.
Okay.
Within that, you'll have cones, same cone pattern, but within that pattern, the driving pattern will be 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
Which got acquired by a Taiwanese company. They started manufacturing in Taiwan. So spoke to Buddy Club directly and said, hey, sell me a set of coilovers. I've heard they're very nice for the Jazz. And then I said, oh, I'm a best amateur and all, give me a discount. There's no harm in asking, right? What are they going to say? No.
Correct.
So I got a discount. And that's how I got the first coilovers on this car. Those coilovers are now on the Drift Swift.
Okay.
Yeah. So we always reuse everything. We don't throw anything away. So that's how I got into the car community. The day I turned 18, I got a license, camera down, and then helmet was on. And that's how I started racing. I would say the first time I drove BIC was when it was still made of dust. So we sneaked into BIC when it was under construction and took a lap of the track to see what it was like. So it was still mitti.
Meet Karan Malik, India's autocross sensation and a maestro behind the wheel. National champion, Gymkhana podium finisher, and an autocross wizard. Karan's driving finesse has left tire tracks across the nation. Meet the man who transforms ordinary into extraordinary. From a humble Honda Jazz, re-engineered with the heart of a Honda City, then the muscle of an Honda K24 engine, Accord, to a Honda Brio ingeniously fitted with a spirited 1.5-litre engine. These aren't just cars, they're extensions of Karan's racing soul. The twist? Karan's journey isn't fueled by legacy or inheritance. Despite his father's passion for cars, Karan's path is self-carved, driven by his own hard-earned success. This is a tale of raw passion, mechanical wizardry, and a relentless pursuit of racing dreams, all on Karan's own terms. Get ready to be captivated by a story where every turn is a testament to dedication, every gear shift is a narrative of perseverance. This is Karan Malik's racing saga, where passion meets the pedal and dreams burn rubber on the track.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karan_K24.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've been trying to make this happen for a while.
For a while now. I've been chasing your rear ends, I think, for I don't know how many months now. A year almost.
Yeah.
But I think let's start with the most important thing is that is your feats. I believe that you have done Gymkhana also and you've won multiple autocross. So walk us through your feats.
So in terms of winning like big prestigious awards, I think the biggest thing I've won so far is a National Autocross Championship.
Okay.
Which was in 2019. So that was when I drove the Brio and so the Brio was stock that year. So I decided to do the National Championship. It was on dirt. So dirt is not my forte, so to say. So I didn't want to start with, say, modified or open.
This was the one which was in near Sector 29, I think.
So the qualifications were here in Delhi. So there was one round in on the Gurgaon side, one round in Chandigarh, and the finals were in Vijayawada.
And the organized by Maruti that time?
No, so this was post Maruti days. And this was another promoter, and I think Vamsi Marla had done the final that year in Vijayawada, which is why we went to Vijayawada. And that year it was a stock Brio, and that's what got me the championship. And from there, similar time frame like 2019-20 is when we also got into Gymkhana. So Gymkhana as a sport was new. So for the first 2 years, we didn't really have any selections. It was the fast autocross guys who decided to go for Gymkhana, saying similar sport. Little did anyone know it's not very similar. But we got better at it slowly. By the time we got really good at it, COVID came along and the sport stopped. So officially, we are still on Team India. So we've not had any selections before. After that, again. And being on Team India, there is an event this month or next month in Taiwan. Some of us are going. And yeah, so it's looking forward to Gymkhana coming back as well. And these are the two ones where I'd say I compete on a larger scale. But yeah, there's every month we do tarmac autocross here, and those wins are coming in frequently, and that's fun. That's more of a hobby, I would say. Whereas INAC was a serious competition that I did. Gymkhana was serious competition, obviously representing India.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. and
INAC was what exactly?
INAC was the Indian National Autocross Championship,
Acha, the one which you were talking
which
about.
was 2019.
2019.
2019.
Okay. Okay.
And Gymkhana, we did an international event. Me and Sahil Khanna, we went to Indonesia together.
I see.
And that was a great event for us. First time competing internationally in a different country. So before that, we had only done Gymkhana International, but in Bombay. So we were hosting. So that was a different story. It was much less exposure. But being the two representing India in Indonesia, that was a different experience altogether. And that was great fun. We did manage to bring home some trophies despite very strong home team from Indonesia. And yeah, the scale there is much larger. They had a Toyota factory team sponsoring Indonesia. They trained the entire year. And then you had me and Sahil who drive with one hand like this, other hand on the handbrake. And everyone staring at us and telling us, what are you doing? This is not how you drive. But at the end of the day, it worked out. We even influenced some people to start driving like this. They got better as well. So it was fun, yeah.
So you just mentioned right now that Gymkhana is another level altogether as compared to autocross or whatever is happening in our country right now. How would you say that it's different?
So autocross, say, is a much higher speed flowing track as compared to, say, Gymkhana. It's not circuit driving. Circuit driving, obviously, you're doing average speeds of 100 plus.
Yeah.
Autocross, you're doing average speeds of, say, 60. More about tighter turns, more about memory.
Okay.
Gymkhana takes that to another level.
Okay.
You'll have, say, the area to drive is the size of a football field.
Okay.
Within that, you'll have cones. Same cone pattern. But within that pattern, the driving pattern will be 5 or 6. So it's a lot of memory and it's much smaller. Average speed, say, you're not going beyond second gear ever in Gymkhana.
It's that aggressive.
It's that aggressive. So it'll be very tight. It'll say you come from where the Brio is, turn around this table and go back. Right? So it's a lot of handbraking, lot of very tight turns. Being able to take a 360 around a single point like that in a front wheel drive car is quite different. And I'd say it's a very strong mix between remembering the track and being able to execute it. So autocross, you have a 2-minute track.
Yeah.
Gymkhana, you have a 40-second track. The gap between first and, say, 10th is within the same second. Like first place will be 39 seconds and 10th place will be 39.8.
40 seconds is damn short, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Gymkhana is a different sport and very different in terms of what you're doing there.
Okay. And shuffling back into time a little bit, where did it all start for you? Cars and then performance.
So cars have always been a big part of my life. I think my dad is a petrol head also, just not to the level where I am now. But I think he's the one who started it off.
Maybe he is, you don't know about it.
He still goes to the track. He's 60 and he still goes to the track with me. He has a 340i, which is a nicer car than me. And so he's making the most of it and I'm really glad to see him doing it. But growing up together, we used to watch F1 together. I think a lot of us have done this. We used to watch F1, Michael Schumacher days, Ferrari. So, you were always hooked towards cars. By the time I reached school, I was friends with a lot of these older people, Sayam and Abhimanyu and that entire circle. Yeah. They were the guys who had the cars and they were doing events like Redline and so on.
SOS. The SOS days.
Speed, and so they had Redline 2. So at that time, I started getting in touch with Sayam and I didn't have a car, I didn't have a license. So I wanted to be close to the sport. So I started as an automobile photographer. So Sayam got me a bunch of gigs, shot something for Mercedes, which got posted by Mercedes Global.
I didn't know that you were into automotive photography also.
That's how I started. That's how I started. The page was KMPH, which was Karan Malik Photography.
That was you.
Yeah.
I remember.
So I started with that and did some graphic design also, got published in Autocar for Sayam, did some Redline ads, things like that. So that's how I got into the car community. The day I turned 18, I got a license, camera down, and then helmet was on. And that's how I started racing. I would say the first time I drove BIC was when it was still made of dust. So we sneaked into BIC when it was under construction and took a lap of the track to see what it was like. So it was still mitti, road roller chal rahe the. And it was good fun. We got to see BIC like that. The first time I actually drove BIC, my dad did a BIC track day before I could.
God bless him.
Yeah, so 2012, I think he did his track day. My first track day was either 13 or 14.
Okay.
At that time, I had a 68 horsepower Figo, the diesel Figo. Terrible power, amazing handling. Still, people like that is the generation of Ford, which people said were great handlers. And the funny thing was, I had one, Vidit had one, a few other friends had one. So we all had Figos at that time.
Oh wow!
And so that was my first track day.
Okay.
My first competition was say 2014.
Okay.
That's when Maruti used to do autocross.
Okay.
So the Grand Plaza behind BIC's grandstand, that area with the mounds and everything. So there was an autocross there.
Okay.
So I entered there in the Figo. Again, that was the car I had at that time. And so in the diesel open class. Just going 68.
No tune, nothing.
Nothing. 68 horsepower, open. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was my first autocross, and that's when I finished. I finished second in diesel open. First place was a 320D, which was 184 horsepower. I was
not a bad competition.
Yeah, so it was good fun, and it was less than a second at the end of it. That's when I knew I had a knack for this.
Oh wow.
That time I was studying in the US.
Less than a second difference than a 320.
Yeah, over say almost 2 minutes, right? And that was a really, really fun thing.
Okay.
And that's when I was studying in the US. I was doing my undergrad. So I went back and I was working that year. So I had to figure out how to get a car, right? So started reading when I used to go to work. So I said, Dad, I can't go to work. I need a car. Like, how do I go? I'll keep missing work like this.
Did you make that up, or that was like genuinely happening?
Partially true, partially false. I could have made it in the rain also. But, so my dad gave me a very tight budget. He said, this is it, buy a car.
Okay.
So I went to see a few cars, did not like it, did not like anything. So I decided to work for a few months. I said, let me top up this so I get something interesting. So I worked for a few months, and then the time finally came. I bought a Acura RSX. So if you played NFS Underground, Underground 2, everyone remembers that car from there. So it was a dream. Like, you wanted a Honda with a K series, and you wanted that. So I picked that up, and in the US, I joined Sports Car Club of America, which was like say $50 a year to become a member, which gave you access to autocrosses locally.
$50 a year, what do you get these days for $50 a year? Nothing.
And the US is still cheaper for autocross than India is.
I'm sure.
Way cheaper, way more organized. We still have things to learn from that. So we used to do that once a month. It used to be the Warriors basketball stadium parking lot.
Okay.
In San Francisco. You pay $40 and you get 4 runs.
Okay.
I never won anything there. Because the competition was high, I didn't have the money. My car had Hankook tires in the front and Pirelli P7 Cinturatos with 700 treadwear in the back. The only mod on that car was a rear sway bar, which I installed myself. So I bought a iBox sway bar, got under the car and installed it myself. Plasti dipped the wheels, and that's it. That's how I did a few events there. Must have done at least 5-6 events, met a lot of people, learned a lot about autocross there. Picked up a lot of technique there. When I graduated, I came back in 2015. 2015, I had this car again. So,
2015, you bought this one then, new?
So this was actually my first car. I learned how to drive on this car. The Figo was a phase in the middle. So I had this in 2009. And that was the time when the petrol-diesel price gap was massive, if you remember.
Yeah.
And we had a Figo, and it just in the family, and it just came to me saying, no one's using this car, do you want to use it? So at that time, I started using the Figo because I was living in Great Noida and interning in Gurgaon. So with that trip, the diesel made more sense, which is why I had the Figo.
Okay.
When I went to college, I gave up the Figo. When I came back, the Jazz was still there though.
Okay.
So 2015 is when I started building this car up, so to say. So on the way back from the US, we stopped in Japan on a family trip. The one I was telling you about. Strictly family trip, only sightseeing, no car parts. But still managed to get some parts delivered to my hotel.
Okay.
So flew back from Japan with a rear sway bar, some lowering springs and front brake pads. And
Not bad.
the basic starter kit. Came back, installed that on this car. So 2015, again, the same autocross that I participated in with the Figo in 2014, came back, did it in 15 with the Jazz and the Yeti. So I had a Yeti also that time, which was king of 4x4 at that time because all we had was gypsies. And the Yeti was just a different league. It was a car compared to a Jeep. So it used to do its thing. So drove both these cars. First run I drove this car, I was given a rerun. Because they felt they had an issue in the timing system. So only amateurs had driven so far. The pros were yet to drive. I had beaten the fastest amateur time by about 9 seconds in this car. Which is why they said, oh, you skipped something on the course. Go back and drive again. So I said, no, I have a GoPro. You can see the recording, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, it got solved. So with great grudging and whatever, everyone who had been there and was experienced sort of said, chalo, theek hai, ho gaya hoga. So then I hopped into the Yeti, went faster by another 2 seconds. So I was an amateur at that time. And at that time, like, I had basically went into the amateur class and I was doing pro times. That was the time when we had Aman Bhaiya, we had Phil, we had all these people who were there and regular at that time. So I was doing their times as an amateur. And that's the year I won Best Amateur. So that was a trophy, and a lot of us in the same circle, we all started with a Best Amateur trophy. First event out, go there, win amateur, become a pro, not know what to do next event onwards. Right? So you suddenly go from here to say here, and then you have to catch up with that. And so we slowly started building this car up. When I started driving, my dad, the petrol head, had a City VTEC, the Type 2. Very favorite car of his. All of us loved that car. And we actually sold it to someone in that circle, that same Subhan Sayyam circle. And dad's rationale was that you just learned how to drive. This car is 100 horsepower, 900 something kilos. 4 disc brakes, no ABS. And he said, this is not really a great idea considering we live on the expressway. Not a great idea. So none of us wanted to sell it, but for me to be around today, I think that's why he decided to make this choice. So we sold that car off. And by then I had driven so many Hondas that, you know, the city, we had always seen the city around. We had a Civic after that. So Honda was the natural choice for me. So the city was out of budget for me then. So, and nobody was buying the Jazz at that time in India. So we got a nice sweet discount on this car. I always wanted a blue one, but the blue didn't have a discount, so I landed up buying a white Jazz. And that's how it started. This car had all of 89 horsepower in 1,000 plus kilos. So it was not fast, to say the least. It used to do 0 to 100 in, say, 14 seconds.
It was a 1.5 back then. 1.2.
1.2. India spec was always 1.2.
1.2,
So my dad and I used to joke. In fact, he used to joke with me. Someday we'll put a 1.5 unit, because that's what it should have had. With like Japan and US, everything came with a 1.5 except for India. India, they gave us the 1.2 and said, this is what you get. Because of the tax breaks and everything.
Right.
So that's what we did. So after that, 2015, drove the car like this for another year or two. Then eventually went to Mayapuri one day with Vidit. So took the Yeti, told my dad I'll be back, going out for the day. Need the Yeti today.
And what was the objective of going to Mayapuri?
So I'll tell you the entire story. So Vidit's uncle had a shop there, so we went with Vidit because Vidit knew Mayapuri really well. And we said, आज ना L15 खरीद के लाएंगे इसके लिए, the 1500. So we went there, picked up a 1500, put it in the back of the Yeti, came home, told my dad, hey, don't take the Yeti to work tomorrow. There's an engine in the back. So he just didn't know how to react. He said, okay, whatever you're doing, just figure it out yourself. So that's the first time we put the engine in this car. Aman Bhaiya in Noida, he had done it because that time we didn't know too many people. So Aman Bhaiya had put the engine in this car. We drove it for a while, did an event or two, then realized that, hey, it doesn't feel like a 1.5. Like if that was 90, this feels like 100. So we put it on a dyno. Phil had the dyno that time. That was the only dyno here.
Right.
Put it on the dyno, the car was making 105 horsepower. Stock 1.5 makes 118. That's when we discovered we had accidentally bought a L13 from Pakistan or something. Like some engine which had sneaked into the country, which looks identical. The L12, L13, L15 all look identical.
Oh my God.
Except for the engine number.
And the guy told you that it's an L15?
So
who was selling
we
you?
assumed it was a L15 because it had a CVT on it.
Oh, okay.
And in India, the city came with the CVT on the L15, if you remember.
Right.
So seeing the CVT, we thought, hey, this must be a L15.
Huh.
I dropped the engine in the car to Aman Bhaiya and went off on a vacation. By the time I came back, Aman Bhaiya had put it in the car, but he had overwritten the existing engine number with L15, with the L12 engine number, so it looks more original. So no one had a clue. No one had a clue without opening the engine. No one knew what it was.
Correct.
Pretty certain that it was not a L15.
Okay.
So we went back to Mayapuri.
Okay.
After about running the car like that for at least 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Went back to Mayapuri, picked up the L15, finally. Actual N15. Saw the engine number this time, clicked a photo of it. Went back and then put the L15 in the car.
Okay.
That's where it started, and I think with the L15 in the car, the L15 is the reason why this car exists, the Brio as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I knew it has a Honda City. It's that same L15 engine.
So that went into this, but now that's kept somewhere on the side. We got a little, so this is the new Honda City engine in it.
Okay.
But yeah, so we had the L15 in this.
Okay.
Then went to coilovers, spoke to this company called Buddy Club, which is an old Japanese brand.
Oh, okay.
Which got acquired by a Taiwanese company.
Acha.
They started manufacturing in Taiwan. So spoke to Buddy Club directly and said, hey, sell me a set of coilovers. I've heard they're very nice for the Jazz. And then I said, oh, I'm a best amateur and all, give me a discount. There's no harm in asking, right?
No
what are they
harm in
going to say?
asking.
No.
Correct.
So I got a discount. And that's how I got the first coilovers on this car. Those coilovers are now on the Drift Swift.
Acha, okay.
Yeah. So we always reuse everything. We don't throw anything away.
If something is rebuildable, why not?
And slowly, we built the gearbox and up and went further and further on the L15 setup on the Jazz itself.
So the gearbox, I'm assuming you had to buy it along with the L15 or it is the same gearbox?
So we used the L12 gearbox because it's shorter.
Okay.
So I'm going to give away a bunch of tips. Hopefully it's useful to everyone. So we used the L12 gearbox. It used the L12, used the original drive shafts, the original axles. The original mounts, the original ECU. So all you're doing is you're buying an engine for say 40,000 rupees at that time. Today it must be like 30, 35 because it's older still.
Yeah.
You take it, do some basic modifications, put it into the car and remap it.
So no change on mountings, nothing?
That is all you need to do. Using the original gearbox, shifter cables, everything. It is a 4-hour engine so.
Oh.
You can bring the car in with a L12 and a L15 on the side. It will be in the car and the car will go home or go to a tuner for a tune. In say 4 hours.
Okay.
So that's why it was so simple and we said we can't mess this up. Let's just do it. Worst case, what will happen?
Correct.
Right? We can always go back to a L12. We never cut anything in the car, whatever. So we ran the L15 for a few years. Enjoyed that a lot.
I'm surprised the axles held up.
Yeah, the axles hold up. So the Jazz axles are the same as the City. The part number is the same.
Okay.
The Brio uses slightly lighter axles. We switched that to Jazz axles because we had them sitting around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, reusing everything. And that's why I stuck to Honda because a lot of my parts can be reused. After driving it for about 2 or 3 years on the L15 and I was now racing in open. So I had gone from modified to open because swapped cars were all in open.
Okay.
That's when Achintya had the Turbo Cat and so with a 1.6 turbo or a 1.3 turbo that he had at that time, a 1.5 NA was just not cutting it for me. Right? It just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough juice in it. It just, I go home to events, come back home disappointed, second, third, saying, what am I doing? You know, so I had hit a point where second, third was very disappointing to me and I said, first to aana hi hai.
Sure.
That's when we decided, spoke to a few guys in the US, figured out people are putting K-series engines into the Jazz.
Okay.
Some people endurance racing, this, that, the other. And I think like always for me, a big part of it has been learning from other people. And that's why I believe in like sharing that knowledge now.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? If no one had told me how to put a K24 in this,
Okay.
like I learned how to, from the US, they told me which mounts to buy, which axles to buy, which engine to buy, how to wire it. You know, they would always give me just enough because nobody wants to spoon feed. Even I don't spoon feed anyone. So if you're going to ask me, okay, down to the detail, I want you to think about it yourself as well. So I'll point you in the right direction.
Before we move forward, like you mentioned earlier, majority of the large chunk of people wouldn't know what a K24 people is. So in layman terms, if you can tell what a K24 engine is, I think that will be more better.
So the legendary Honda engines always have been, there used to be something called a B series earlier, which came in that old Integra Type R, which was before the RSX, the Gen 1 RSX, so to say.
Okay.
So the Integra had that B series, a bunch of old Civic SIs and Type Rs had the B series.
Okay.
All of those were what people in India used to then put in the City VTECs.
I see.
That was the engine then. After that, Honda moved to the K series. The K series was their new flagship engine.
Okay.
The K series came in their Civic Type Rs, came in a bunch of things.
Okay.
But the K series that we got in India was always the economy spec K series.
I see. It was underpowered then.
So the Accord, the CRV, everything came with the K series. They came with the K24. There was even a K20 in India.
Oh, okay.
Which came in a CRV front wheel drive.
Yeah. I remember.
The 2-liter CRV.
Yes.
That was the
CRV.
K20. I tried looking for that, could not find one. But
so let's go for a 2.4.
So we said if you're doing 2.4, let's go for the newer 2.4.
Right.
So the closest thing we got was the ugly American boxy Accord, the bloated one, the 2008. So that came with a 177 horsepower K24. Again, K20s, the Type R K20s are all 200 horsepower plus, 200, 220, and those are 2-liter pushing 200 plus. So 2.4, 177 was still very sedate. It was still not a big deal. But it was the best we got.
Right.
So we decided that is what we want to put in this car, and we were recommended to put that engine in because this car runs on an Accord ECU today.
Okay.
It's running on an Accord ECU, you scan it, it identifies as an Accord.
Okay.
But the plus point was it's using a Jazz cluster, the Jazz ka chabi, the BCM works, the ABS works, the traction, my airbags work. So that was the reason for picking that, because still I don't know who I was fooling. I wanted to build a streetable car, which I never streeted, obviously. Like I tried streeting it for about 6 months before it became too loud, and I was like, I can't drive this car. But yeah, that was the aim when we did it.
Okay.
So someone told me buy that engine. So again, a very long story if you want. I can get into it. But put the word out saying, hey, I want an Accord. And this was in 2018. So the car was 10 years old, the donor Accord. Yeah, I was telling you. So it's a long story with the K24, how it happened. Didn't have a lot of money, right?
Right.
Just started working, had been working for 3 years, but wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So the only way of doing this was doing it myself, running around, trying to save every penny possible.
Every penny possible.
Put out word in the radius, NCR++. So Agra, Mathura, Jaipur, this, that, the other. Anyone with a totaled Accord, please call.
Okay.
All Honda dealers in the region. Anyone with a total Accord and no insurance, please give me a call. I'll pay cash and pick up the car.
Okay.
Because Hondas, a 10-year-old Honda, nothing's happening to the engine.
Right.
Nothing's happening to the car. The only way you would get one is if it had crashed.
True.
Right? So went to Mayapuri, couldn't find one. So the idea was now we need to buy a car. A 10-year-old Accord, that time with no 10-15 year rule, the cars were going for 7 to 8 lakhs.
Oh, okay.
Right? Cars still had value then.
Yeah.
And it was an Accord, it was a flagship, everyone wanted one. So no used engine, no new Accord. Only used Accord was the only option. Meanwhile, I had gone to the US in the middle, bought the mounts and axles for the K-swap from this company called Hasport.
Okay.
So again, they're doing a great work out there. They're making mounts for these swaps, which make my job much simpler. So I'm not engineering a mount.
Right.
I'm buying a mount, and ideally it should be bolt-in, but obviously left hand versus right hand drive, there are slight changes. So we made slight modifications to do it.
Okay.
Bought the mounts, had the car, had the axles, sitting there waiting. अब phone बजेगा तो गाड़ी लेके आए. One fine day that call came. Rolled over Accord in Etawah, ahead of Agra.
Okay.
Right. And now I called up a crane wala and I said Etawah से गाड़ी लानी है. The price quote he gave me, I said इतना तो यार मेरा build budget में से तुम खा जाओगे. So then I found a Honda mechanic who worked at the Agra dealer, and I caught him on a weekend. I said, what do you do on the weekend? So he said this, that, the other. I said, where's your house? So he told me his address. Then I called the crane wala. I said, how much to send the car to his house in Agra from Etawah? That was 80 kilometers.
Yeah.
So I said, this maybe I can afford. I said, why bring the car to Delhi? I only want the engine anyway.
Correct.
Right? So we sent it to that guy's house. Now when the flatbed reached, his lane was so tight that the flatbed couldn't make that 90 right.
Oh damn.
Right? And we couldn't leave it here because the rest of the mohalla started complaining कि क्या कर रहे हो? So we went at night, then called a Hydra wala. Hydra crane नहीं होती जो उठा के ऐसे रखती.
Correct.
So from the flatbed we picked up that Accord with a Hydra, kept it in his lane at night. This was an all-day activity. I left home in the morning, went to Etawah, got the car to Agra, got it put in his lane, and then drove home at night.
Okay.
Agra is 2 hours, 2.5 hours away for me at least. So came home at night. I said, tomorrow is Saturday, tomorrow is when we start. And we have 2 days to rip this engine out and get it home. So borrowed a friend's D-Max. Because I was like, engine लाना है अब कैसे आएगा? अब Yeti में तो नहीं आने वाला था K24, L15 तो आ गया था. Still had the Yeti that time. I used to use it for all this only.
Yeah.
Borrowed a D-Max, went to Agra, sat in that guy's lane with bakri, bacche, chai, vai, full mohalla. Yeah. We just sat there for 2 days.
Okay.
Morning to evening, used to sit there on a small stool in front of the car, saying, take this out, put it in that, take this out, take this. At this point, we had no idea if the engine runs or not. Right?
Oh God.
The car was non-running. So we put in a decent amount of work. Now at the end of this, the mechanic tells me, okay, now your work is done. We loaded everything into the D-Max. Sunday morning, I am ready to go home. He said, रुको, कहाँ जा रहे हो? ये गाड़ी का क्या करना है? So again, I didn't want to pay for a crane, this, that, the other, whatever. The car still had like other Accord parts. It had brakes, wheels, whatever. I said, aren't you a Honda mechanic? So I said, don't you need parts? So he said, yeah. So I said, do one thing, give me 20K.
Are you serious?
So the conversation started with him saying, here is my labor bill and here is your car. So I said, okay, bro, you pay me and keep the car.
That was smart.
Yeah,
okay.
So net, I think that at that time, that engine, gearbox, ECU, wiring, all of the stuff we needed cost me about 70K after आगे पीछे ये वो. So I was like, ठीक है, हो गया. US price पे मैं $1,000 में engine ले आया हूँ. So I was very happy, and obviously it took a lot of effort doing that, everything. Came back to Delhi. Now big role in these cars is this friend of mine called Venkat from Bangalore called Blackworks. He runs a workshop called Blackworks.
Blackworks, of course.
Yeah, nobody's seen the guy's face. He doesn't put his photo on WhatsApp, doesn't put it on Facebook. Someone knows there's this guy called Blackworks, that's it. Met him through another friend. Again, Honda community is very tight. And this is something I've noticed till today. Like all Honda guys become friends somehow.
Yeah.
Maruti's doesn't happen because there's too many of them.
Too many of them.
Yeah.
It's something very similar with the WAG community also.
Yeah. So I had this friend Bhuvan. He had a Civic Turbo with a K24 in it. In Gurgaon.
Yes, the red one.
The red one.
Yeah.
I asked Bhuvan, who built your car? He said, this guy called Venkat. So I just called Venkat. I said, hi, I'm Bhuvan's friend. I want to build this car. So Venkat was the kind of guy who only builds what he wants to build.
Okay.
Yeah, so you go to him, throw any amount of money, but if he doesn't want to build it, he will not build it.
He'll not build it.
He'll not build it for you.
Okay.
So I told him, I said, मेरे को Jazz में ना K24 डालना है. So he said, he just gave me a look. So I said, I'm sure it fits. I'm sure it will fit. You come to Delhi. So he came. That time we worked at Sparky's garage.
Okay.
I've been to every workshop in the city.
Okay.
Now we are here. But
Okay.
Sat at Sparky's garage with Venkat for a week.
Huh.
Did all the necessary fabrication, fitting, this, that, the other.
Huh.
Target was that same Autocross, 2018 edition. The same one which I did it in the Figo and then in the Jazz. I wanted to now do it in the Jazz with the 2.4. I said, अब मैं दिखाता हूँ गाड़ी बना के. So November is when we were building the car, and that's when the event was. Kept building it. Night before the event, we were sitting in the workshop at like 3 a.m. Things aren't moving as per plan.
Okay.
Event is at 7. I'm like, if there's any hope of me making this event, I need at least 3 hours of sleep. I'll go drive the Yeti worst case. Went home, went to sleep. 6 a.m., Venkat was staying with me, so Venkat and I both went home. 6 a.m., Sparky calls me, say, hey, I'm outside your house. With the car.
Okay.
Car was running, it had driven till there.
Fantastic.
And we said, चलो 7 बजे अब इसको उतार दो competition में सीधा. So the only time I had driven this car was from home to BIC.